General Yang, thank you very much for your detailed speech and the principles that you set out. We will now accord the designated time to the conversation I earlier advertised, I hope up to 30 minutes. I mentioned in passing to General Liang Guanglie as we went up to the stage that by one count, I haven't corroborated this count, Secretary Gates was asked 14 questions, and 11 out of those 14 were in some way related to China. So I said to him, it might be that you will receive 14 questions, and 11 of the 14 will be on the United States. But we'll have to find out. If you hold up your cards for a moment longer, I will do my best. But I see more than 14 already. And if you all ask your questions crisply, and General Liang Guanglie gives short, equally crisp answers, we will have a very good dialogue. And I'm trying to make certain that I have a variety of people in so that a selection of different national perspectives are made possible. Could I first call on Mr. Ouyang? Ouyang? There you are.
Thank you, Chairman. 非常感谢主席先生。Just now,
I thank General Liang for a very comprehensive and detailed presentation introducing China's principles and perspectives on international cooperation. As I understand, a key point of this speech is the issue of cooperation. China has all along placed values on the fact that we should not only concentrate ourselves on the ideas and theories of cooperation, but also about action. And action touches upon people. My question is, in the future, as for practical cooperation with other countries, what specific plans, particularly people-to-people contact in the military, what China has, or what the general has in your mind for the plans for future people-to-people contact? I would like to first emphasize that this time I attended with a senior delegation to attend Shangri-La dialogue is for peace, for harmony. And also, we would like to take this opportunity to have good communications with colleagues from other countries to build to build trust, and to better improve security cooperation and defense cooperation with relevant countries. Since the day of my arrival, I feel that my purpose has been very well achieved. Now I'd like to take Mr. Ouyang's question. In my speech just now, I mentioned that China's Defense Ministry and the People's Liberation Army have had contact with contacts and engagement with over 150 countries. We highly value such engagement with those countries. We also believe that we should have practical cooperation so that those cooperation could be a strong pillar for the development of state-to-state and mil-to-mil relations. Practical cooperation has a wide range of touches upon a wide range of aspects. The common ones include, first, to have very good person-to-person contact in the senior level, because it is very crucial in tie the two closer together and build strategic trust. It is also very helpful to chart a good plan for bilateral or multilateral engagement. And second, we have to have the cooperation at different areas, at different levels, to make it as extensive as possible, so that in the cooperation, countries may learn from each other in their experiences or lessons learned in force development, so that it will be beneficiary for everybody to improve. And thirdly, it is also very useful to have joint training programs or joint exercises with relevant countries. It would be useful to have exercise between different services, between navies, air forces. And fourthly, within the capacity of the military, we are doing and we will continue to do so in providing necessary assistance for underdeveloped countries, not only in Asia but also in other continents like Africa, for example.
Thank you very much. Yesterday, in this room, U.S. Defense Secretary Robert Gates unveiled new plans to increase the U.S. military presence and involvement in Southeast Asia. He announced that the U.S. will increase its training and exercises with the allies in the region, increase troop rotations through Australia, upgrade military infrastructure along the Indian Ocean, and move more naval warships to Singapore. Gates explained that, quote, "The U.S. Navy and Air Force have been concerned about anti-access and aerial denial scenarios for some time. Now, you just said that security cooperation shouldn't be targeted at specific countries, but of course there is only one country that concerns the U.S. and its Southeast Asian allies when it comes to anti-access and area denial scenarios, and that country is China. Do you see these moves as part of an effort to contain China? How will China respond to the U.S. moves? And do you think that if China halted its development of anti-access and area denial weaponry, might that help prevent an arms race in Southeast Asia? Thank you."
I will take the question of this gentleman from Cable News. First, I want to emphasize that one has to realize that the picture of the bilateral relations between China and the United States is a good one, and the relationship is developing very well. At the beginning of this year, President Hu Jintao and President Obama have reached an important consensus in building a cooperative partnership based on mutual respect and mutual benefit. This is the first point that I want to emphasize, that we need to have a correct understanding of the status quo of the bilateral relations between China and the United States. And in recent years, in the political, economic, cultural, and including the military domains, China and US have made great progress in bilateral relations. Take the mil-to-mil relationship, for example. At my invitation, Secretary Gates visited China, which was very successful in January this year. And we agreed extensively on issues regarding mil-to-mil relations. In last month, Chief of the General Staff of PLA, General Chen Bingde, at the invitation of Admiral Mullen, also had a very good visit to United States. And as for the future development of mil-to-mil relations, the two reached a 6-point consensus. In the afternoon, the day before yesterday, while we were both present in Shangri-La dialogue, Secretary Gates and I had a good conversation, actually a meeting. And yesterday afternoon, I had a meeting with Secretary Steinberg. And I believe all of us are very optimistic about the future of bilateral and mil-to-mil relations. And all of us are for greater enhanced practical cooperation so that the mil-to-mil and bilateral relations between the two nations will make continuous progress. And that's the point that I want to raise first. As for maritime safety or security, and I think you mainly talk about South China Sea, because for other areas, people might not be that interested in. And in this area, I would emphasize that the freedom of navigation and overflight in this region has never been impeded, has never been a problem, and the situation in South China Sea remains stable.
From Japan, Masa Nishihara. The others can keep your name tags up. There's always hope.
Thank you very much. The Minister, we have heard a very interesting picture of what China is really up to for defense and also corporate security situations in the region. But I'm afraid there is a distinctive gap between what you have said and what actually happening in the region. Just give one example. Last year we had territorial disputes. The U.S., China has been developing aircraft carriers. They have also introduced a strategic nuclear submarines. Now, is this really for the part of defensive nature of Chinese defense policy? Another question is, China and Japan agreed to have a co-development of oil the explorations in the East China Seas. We have emphasized that security should be done through cooperation, but the way what is happening in the region, in that area, does not seem to be a cooperation, but rather the one-sided exploration by China. So I would appreciate your clearing up these issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the question from this Japanese friend. I think on China's economic development and the progress in its defense force, particularly the progress of its weapon system, one need to have a more objective and appropriate understanding. China's security environment and the demand or requirement for its security both require a correspondent defense capability to ensure its sovereignty free from invasion and for the security of its nation building and social development efforts to ensure its people to lead a good life. China's defense modernization is compatible with its growth in national economy. While we focus on economic growth, we are sparing some resources on the development of its military. And it is natural, and it's a universal approach adopted by every country to make modest development of its armed forces in accordance with its national economic strength. As I emphasized in my speech, we do not intend to be a threat to any other country with the modernization of our own military force. I know many people tend to believe that with the growth of China's economy, China will become a military threat. I would like to say that it is not our option. We didn't seek to, we are not seeking to, and we will not seek to hegemony. And we never intend to threat any country. As you said, as for the gap you mentioned between words and deeds, I'm afraid I can't agree 100% because we're always trying to honor our words with deeds. As for gas exploration in East Sea, I won't call myself an expert on such area. As for the incidents that arouses different understanding or interpretations, I think it is always possible for Chinese and Japanese government to properly address them through negotiation. You have to be confident, I am confident, that the two governments will be able to address this issue appropriately according to the agreements between the two governments.
The next is Manish Tiwari, member of the Indian Parliament and national spokesperson of the Indian Congress Party.
Thank you, John. First of all, I would like to congratulate General Liang for a very exhaustive and a holistic perspective. General, during your address, you talked about accommodating core interests and understanding strategic intentions. Now, without getting into a broad sweep of issues, there has been speculation about a reappraisal of China's core interests. I was just wanting to find out and understand that what would constitute China's core interests in South Asia and the Indian Ocean. Thank you.
我可以回答你这个问题。
Thank you for your question. First, we have to recognize that Every country has its own core interest. Every nation has some important issues of their utmost concerns. As for the core interests mentioned by China, I will try to be comprehensive in answering this question. And I believe that the core interests include anything that is related to the sovereignty, political stability, and form of government. For example, China is now pursuing a path of socialism. If there's any attempt to reject this path, that will touch us upon China's core interest. The form of government of China is well known to all. Or if there's any attempt to secede any part of China from China, that also touches upon core interest. And that is to say that anything related to our territorial land, sea, or air. And then anything that is related to the interests of China's national development, it will also touch us upon China's core interest.
France, Jean-Claude Mallet.
Mr. Minister, in your numerous remarks on very essential elements of your policy, you have reiterated your attachment to the security of global commons, and in particular, you alluded to a variety of areas in which China could contribute. I belong to a country which has developed a concept, military and security concept, taking into account 3 years ago the question of cyber wars. My question would be, what is the part in the Chinese doctrine, military doctrine, defense doctrine, that you allocate to the question of cyber security and cyber war? And the second question is, what is your reaction to Secretary Gates' proposal yesterday that there should be a development of rules of the road in the field of cybersecurity? Do you see this as a risk or an opportunity? Thank you.
First, I will take your first question. Now we are seeing an information age, and the cyber age. And internet is playing a crucial role in improving our efficiency and way of life. The cyberspace is open to all, and everyone is enjoying the service of cyberspace. However, cybersecurity is something that we all need to pay great attention to. In China, we do pay great attention to this issue. And it is important for everyone to obey or follow laws and regulations in terms of cyber security. Rules should also apply to cooperation among countries in this domain. Yesterday, there were some questions raised for Secretary Gates that there were some attacks from China against the networks of defense establishments in U.S., and I would concur with Secretary Gates' answer that actually in China we also suffered quite a wide range and frequent cyber attacks, and it is hard to attribute the real source of attacks, and we need to work together to make sure that this security problem won't be a problem, so that we will ensure the safety and economy and every aspect of the social of the country. Secretary Gates' answer is also a very general one. And in this case, I can't give too many details on that. We have to look at what specific aspect of this issue it touches upon. Then we will come up with exact approach to deal with that. Of course, we are positive towards that, incorporating with all nations.
Good. I have a few. I have dozens on my list, but I have a few more I can get to. I don't know whether I'm going to pronounce your name right, but I very much hope I do. Peter Xu of Phoenix Satellite TV.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sorry, I forgot where you were. There you are. Can you just put up your hand?
梁部长，我想问一个问题。
Minister Liang, you talk extensively on the intention of military development, and I think we mainly look at the two things, capabilities and intentions, and I believe you've made it very clear in terms of intention, and come back to capabilities. China's military capabilities, as observed by the Western world, it is developing very fast, while China still thinks it is slowly developing. And as a defense minister, how do you make an assessment realistically on its capabilities? Or if there is a gap between US and China, for example, how big is the gap? And it exactly comes to my trade as for your question. I will also try to do my best to answer. Well, first, the priority is placed on China's economic growth. We also managed to make some progress in our defense modernization. And it has, I know, drawn wide attention from the international community. And we have received objective, positive comments, and also comments from other directions. How exactly is, or how exactly powerful or strong this military is? In the 60th anniversary of the founding of the People's Republic of China, we have displayed our weapon systems in the military parade, which reflects a picture of the current capabilities of Chinese military. I think we have to look at from various angles. First, we have to acknowledge that it is more modern, more developed. However, there still exists a gap between China and that of developed or relatively developed countries, and I would still call the gap big. For example, the main battle equipments of our services, Army, Navy, Air Force, are mainly second-generation weapons, and we do not have a large arsenal of third-generation weapons or systems, platforms. Well, it is already third generation as the bulk, or moving towards the fourth generation. So there is a generational gap. As for PLA Army is still being motorized. We haven't totally finished the task yet. Well, mechanization is not completed yet. most of the troops are still motorized, not mechanized yet. And what we call informationization of the force just started. I recall that a couple of years back, Dr. Kissinger of U.S. visited one of our light mechanized infantry brigade. And this one is one of our relatively good ones. And he told me that there is 20-year gap between U.S. and China. And I'm afraid this situation remains there. In order to adjust to the future fighting environment, in order to ensure the security of the country, we still have to improve our weapons and systems while we still prioritizing our economic growth. In this modernization drive, we will try to make the different services be able to fulfill their own missions.
Financial Times, Dimitri Sevastopoulou. If you could raise your name tag again. Well, Dimitri, if he can raise his name tag. And if he's not going to take the floor, then I will go to Dana Allen.
John, I'm here.
Oh, where are you?
Right in the middle.
In the middle. All right, just start speaking. The camera will get you.
General Liang, recently the...
喂，先生是哪个报？报个姓名。金融时报。
Your name and
From the
Financial Times.
There you are.
金融时报. General Liang, recently the Pakistani defense minister said that Pakistan had asked China to build a naval base in the southern port of Gwadar. What do you intend to do with that port? Do you intend to have a permanent naval presence? And do you have any plans for other countries in the region, including Sri Lanka?
I'm not sure what is the resource of this information, but what I can tell you is that as a member of the State Council of the Chinese government, and also member of Central Military Commission, as for issues of such an importance, the government and the military will have a very serious and careful studies on that, and we will have exact plans, then set up a panel to discuss it, and I haven't heard of it, so I don't know how to take it.
Can we take one more question? Yes? I promised Dana Allen. Go ahead.
Thank you, John. General, thank you for your remarks. You spoke eloquently about some general principles, among them inclusive security and that no alliances should be directed against a third country. But like some others in this hall, I'd like to ask you about a more specific problem. As the Democratic People's Republic of Korea continues to develop nuclear weapons and long-range missiles, is it not understandable and indeed inevitable that threatened countries such as Japan and the Republic of Korea are going to seek an ever closer military alliance with the United States?
韩国和美国合作，请你把最后一个问题再说一下，最后面一段。威胁会迫使。
since the nuclear test in DPRK. The situation on the peninsula has been a heated topic in the international community. Sometimes there is tension, sometimes it relaxed a little bit. Particularly the end of last year and also beginning of this year, a sort of armed conflict is about to take place, was about to take place. As a neighbor of Korean Peninsula, China, of course, pays great attention to the involvement of the situation. The Chinese government has been all along working together with the international community, including Russia, US, Japan, Korea, etc., to work on the side of DPRK. Therefore, we had this mechanism of six-party talks. The UN Security Council also adopted relevant resolutions. I won't elaborate on that. China also ratified this resolution. China opposed the development of nuclear weapons of DPRK. We oppose the escalation of tension or creation of tension by DPRK, and this stance is known to everybody. Through joint efforts, now the situation on the peninsula are moving towards relaxation. Of course, the foundation of it remains fragile. Yesterday, I had a meeting with the Japanese defense minister as well as Korean defense minister Kim, and we all are very concerned and following closely the development of the situation. We hope that it is undesirable to let possible tension to continue to be that way. And it is imperative to properly address this issue through negotiations and talks. It is undesirable to make artificial tensions or to make intentional tensions. We are doing our best as from the Chinese perspective that we are working on both South Korea and North Korea. And I would say that the work that we've done with North Korea has been way much more than what outside world may expect. We are doing our work at all levels in the government, the civilian, the military. And we're trying to persuade them, do not risk. Of course, we are also having very active negotiations. We keep each other informed with Japan, with South Korea, and it is because the concerted efforts of all parties concerned, the tension calmed down, and that's why we still call for restraint, cool-headedness of all parties. We hope that countries would do more things that might be helpful for peace and stability. Do not resort to force. And let alone escalation of tension. We need to cool things down. And that will be helpful for peace and stability on the peninsula. Thank you.
General Liang Guanglie, Minister of National Defense, State Councillor of China, we're immensely grateful for your presence here today, for your speech, and for your answers to so many very different questions. This has been an extremely important plenary session at the Shangri-La Dialogue, an historic plenary session of the Shangri-La Dialogue. We look forward to very many like this in the future. There were at least 25 people who would have wanted to ask you questions and who would have appreciated, having heard your earlier ones, your answers to their questions. Perhaps you can have a conversation with them on the sidelines of the conference. For the moment, I would just like to present you with a leather-bound copy of the IISS military balance so that IISS and China can continue to have a dialogue about the military balance, and we look forward to continued cooperation both between the IISS and China and with the Shangri-La Dialogue. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Please allow me to add a few remarks. Thank you, Dr. Chipman, for this opportunity for me to address the conference, and thank you also for your invitation. I would also like to thank everybody present in the room for your attentive listening and interesting questions that we may discuss together.